Hi, welcome back to You Can Create Art, and welcome to a level 1 episode where we're going to be essentially painting with tissue paper. We're going to be making this, a stained glass looking creation. Let's go over the materials you're going to need. You're going to need construction paper. I think I'm going to use both white and blue just to try out two different looks. You're going to need some tissue paper, again, cheapo Dollar Tree tissue paper, and for setup you'll need to cut it into squares, which I'll go over in just a moment. And then you'll need either a cup or a bowl of water, depending on the age of the child. I'll explain the difference shortly. And then you will need a paintbrush or a sponge paintbrush. Again, it depends on the age of the child, and I'll explain the difference there in just a moment. And finally, you will need a glue stick. Let's get started with setup. To set up, you're going to want to first cut your tissue paper into squares. Now, there's an easy way to do this so you don't end up cutting forever. I just put one sheet of each color all together, folded them up, and then I'm just going to take my scissors. Now, you don't want tiny squares unless you have an older child, because little hands need big things to grab onto. So I'm going to say about roughly an inch, no one's going to measure. And I'm just going to cut straight across all of the sheets just like that. That extra we don't need. And then from here, I'm going to, let's see, we'll just make this easier. Cut squares, and look, just like that, in a matter of minutes, I have just cut like a gajillion squares of tissue paper. Yay! And really, that is all you're going to need, because this is a level 1. This is for children with a small attention span. You probably won't even need half of these, but if you end up needing more, they're easy to cut. Let's get started. I'm going to make my tissue paper pile there. Just ignore my dirty desk. Oh, wow, that's hard to ignore when it's right in front of you like that. So we're just going to put this, look, it's suddenly clean. It's a miracle. I'm going to start with this white paper. Now, if I'm working with a younger child, like 4 or 5, I'm probably going to want to use a sponge because of dexterity, and because I'm one of those parents that worries that every glass without a lid on it is going to get tipped over and spilled. I would recommend putting a little bit of water in a bowl that you don't feel is going to tip over. That way you have less likelihood of spill. Let's get started. Now, my initial idea for this project was something we used to do back at the preschool where I taught 100 years ago, where the kids would use a paintbrush and a tissue paper square, and they would wet it and it would stain the paper, and it was so cool. But you know what? People are up in their tissue paper game these days, and even the cheapest tissue paper won't bleed and stain. So I had to change my idea. That's what we're going to do. Instead of staining the paper with tissue paper, we're going to decorate the paper with tissue paper. All right, so recommended to use a glue stick for this age level because wet glue is messy. It's messy even for middle schoolers and high schoolers. So if you don't want to be cleaning up glue off of everything for hours, use a glue stick. It does not drip or run or get all over everything all the time. The child will pick the area they want to start with. Most kids like to start right in the middle of the paper, because why not? So there's no rhyme or reason here. They can just scribble that glue all over. If you want to get one of those glue sticks that's purple and clear, good grief, purple and dries clear so they can see their scribbles, hey, that's a good idea, but I don't have one of those, okay? And I'm just going to wet the corner of my sponge. Come on if you're coming. I'm going to choose a piece of tissue paper, and I'm just going to put it straight down on that glue. And I'm just going to use the corner of my sponge, which I have squeezed, and I'm just going dab, 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 dab. You know, and there's no need to stop at layering 2. I can layer and layer and layer and layer. And see, I've only had to dip my sponge once, and because it holds water, back in there and dripping water everywhere. Which is really a nice thing when you don't want to have to clean up all the time forever, because that's just what moms do. So I am just working this space that I scribbled the glue on and gluing down these tissue squares. And you know, it's really pretty. This white background is nice and bright, so the colors show. There we go. So if the child wants to continue, they can cover that whole paper. I'm actually going to see what happens when I use a blue construction paper, just to see what happens when the background is darker. So again, I'm going to use my non-messy glue stick. Scribble. Okay. Repeat steps 1 through all. Now, some of you, I say that as if everybody is watching. Some people may or may not know that I used to teach at a preschool years ago, back when I was in college, and then a little bit after college. I taught at a preschool. And we used to do all the arts projects. So like 3, 4, 5-year-old babies, we would be doing art together, and it was so much fun. And then I worked at 3 different Boys and Girls Club units in my community, and all 3 units I was in charge of the art room. So I had kids ages, school, basically kindergarten through sometimes high school, would come through my art room. We would do organized activities, or it would be a free-for-all depending on the specific unit that I taught in. But man, I got projects. I got projects for days. Hi there. How's it going? It's little girls, little girls. Now I'm a middle school teacher, and that's fun right now. So, not an art teacher though. I'm actually a language arts teacher, so art with words. Paint your picture with words, my darlings. That's what I do. Let's check out this blue art. I don't know how I feel about this blue background, but hey, I don't hate it. Just the colors aren't as vibrant, which, you know, 4-year-olds probably don't care. They just want something fun to do with their hands that makes a pretty art. So here I am just covering my glue. Sponge, 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 sponge. So there you have it. Painting with tissue paper. So the tissue paper is beginning to dry. It's still kind of wet. You can see the light really shines through it. And what I'm beginning to notice is where I layered, you can't really see it, where I layered, the tissue paper is starting to come up a little bit. So easy fix to that, just whip out that glue stick. And this is something that the child can do as they watch it dry. They can just glue stick right on top of those loose parts. Whee! See, it's like ice skating with a glue stick. Then we wait for it to dry, and we can talk about finding the right composition to cut out for display. Now our level 1 tissue paper art is dry. All right, it's got that wrinkly look, but that's kind of part of the appeal. I kind of like it. So here's how you can finish. You got a couple of choices. You can just leave it just like this. It looks great. Make sure to let the artist write his or her name at the bottom, okay? If you want to zhuzh it up a little bit, this is where you as the grown-up would need to step in and help, most likely. Older kids can do this themselves. You can cut out around the shape that your tissue paper art is making. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing a heart. It's just me. So here's how I like to make hearts, because hearts are not easy to cut. I'm just going to fold this in half, what we like to call hot dog in the public school world or craft world, or I don't know, maybe all over the world. And I am going to cut out a heart, but just half of it, because I folded it in half, and You know, older kids can do this. My, that's a really long heart. Let me fix it. There we go. Younger kids, maybe if you want to help by drawing it, they can cut along and practice those fine motor skills. And then, isn't that cute? Now let's look at our blue in here. You can sit there. This one, I'm not seeing a shape so much, but I really like that it's in the middle. So I'm just going to trim the edges and leave a bit of a space there for a frame. Make sure the artist signs his or her name, and you can hang this on the wall, hang it on the window, hang it on the refrigerator, and they've got a nice little tissue paper painting with no paint spills or stains to clean up. Isn't that nice? Well, thanks for joining me. Be sure to be on the lookout for the level 2 and level 3 versions of this particular project using tissue paper and paint for a stained glass look. All right. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.